What's up? I'm Vin, and today I'm going through the STAAR math exam for grade 8, and this was given in May 2022. I'll leave a link to a copy of this test in the description below. So let's get started. Question 1, we have triangle HJK, and we're going to use this rule to transform it. So I would actually do the transformation first and see what it matches up to. So we have this point here at 6, 1. And if we take the point 6, 1, and we run it through this transformation, we're going to just change the sign of the x. Then that's going to send us to the point negative 6, 1. So notice once again, what we're doing is we're taking the x and we're just changing the sign. So this would send us to the point k prime like this. So then if I take point h is at 2, 3. So those are the coordinates for h. And then I just changed the sign of the x. That's going to send me to negative 2, 3. So what transformation we're actually going forward with here is a reflection over the y-axis. So we could use the rule, or I could just see that instead of going to 4, 7, we're going to go over here to negative 4, 7 like this, and that's going to send us over here to j prime. So we're going to scan the answer key here and see which triangle looks like this. So we look here and we see our answer definitely matches up with choice A. Question 2, we have a right triangle. We know the length of 2 sides, and we want to find the value of the third side here, which happens to be the hypotenuse. And we know this is the hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle like this. So this is the formula you need to know, the Pythagorean Theorem. We have a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, where c is the hypotenuse. But to be funny here, instead of calling this c, they called it d. So we'll reinvent the Pythagorean theorem, and we'll call this a squared plus b squared equals d squared. So now we just plug in, we're going to have 11.9 squared plus we have 7.9 squared, and this is going to be equal to d squared like this. So if we want to solve for the value of d, then all we have to tell the calculator here, we're going to take the square root of both sides, and d is going to be equal to the square root of this sum. So to get a square root, we're going to press second x squared like this, and we've got 11.9 squared plus, and then we have 7.9 squared, and then we just throw this under the square root like this. Just know we could have done 11.9 squared plus 7.9 squared, hit enter, and then took the square root of our answer, but we're going to get 14.3 here if we round. So the calculator told us 14.3, and this is going to be our final solution. Choice H. Question 3, we have the perimeter of a triangle is 17x units, and we have the dimensions of the triangle given here, and we want to know which equation can be used to find the value of x. Well, what we know here is the perimeter is the sum of all of the sides. So what we could say here is that the perimeter is equal to, we would have 15 units plus another 15 units plus 7x units. But they told us over here that the perimeter is known to be 17x units. So that means we're going to set p equal to 17x, and now we could just combine like terms here. 15 plus 15 is going to give us 30, and we have 30 plus 7x here, and now we just scan the answer choices here, and this is going to match up with choice A. Question 4, we have a scatter plot here showing the relationship between the weight in pounds and age in weeks of a certain dog breed, and we want to know here, based on this scatter plot, which is the best prediction of the weight in pounds of the dog at 28 weeks old. So the idea for this is you want to draw a line of best fit. So to the best of my artistic ability, I'm just going to draw a line like this that captures most of the data. So now we look, they're saying what's going on at 28 weeks. That's over here. We go up to the line and notice that we are a little bit shy of 75, just in the neighborhood of 75 here. And the answer that's closest to 75 is choice G. So this is going to be our solution. So question 5, we have Gwen spent $12.50 to purchase 5 bracelets. Each bracelet cost the same amount. And we want to know which graph has a slope that best represents this rate. So this is a linear relationship because each bracelet costs the same amount. And what we could do is if 5 bracelets cost $12.50. What we could do is we could look at $12.50 divided by 5, and I'm going to put BR on bottom for bracelet. And if we do 12.5 divided by 5, that equals 2.5, which means that it costs $2.50 for 1 bracelet. So I'm just doing the division here to get the unit rate. And now when we look, this is going to help us pick our graph. This is saying that it costs $5 to buy 1 bracelet. And that doesn't make sense because it costs $2.50 to buy 1 bracelet because we did the division over here. Now this graph in B is saying it costs about $12.50 to buy 1 bracelet. But no, it costs $12.50 to buy 5 bracelets. So that would have to be over here at 5, this same value. So this one is out. This is not correct. Choice C is looking good. because you can see here, one bracelet is $2.50. By the time we get to 5 bracelets over here, we're at $12.50. So this one is looking good. And if we see here, choice D is out because this is saying one bracelet is less than $2, but one bracelet is $2.50. So this one is not climbing fast enough. Definitely choice C. Question 6, we have a cylinder. So the first thing I would do here is just draw a cylinder so that we could label this, so that when we have to find the volume in a moment, we are definitely accurate here. So we have a cylinder. The height is 5 feet. So we're going to go ahead and just label this distance here as 5 feet. And we're told the diameter is 2 feet. So that's this distance all the way across. So the diameter is 2 feet. And what we want to know here is which measurement is closest to the volume of the cylinder in cubic feet. So just know the volume of a cylinder is pi times r squared times h. So one thing here, if you go like this, pi times, and you just go 2 squared times 5 like this, you are stepping in a very, very, very dangerous bear trap. Okay? This is a very common mistake in 8th grade and all levels of math. You have to make sure that you're plugging in the radius. And if the diameter of the circle across the top is 2 feet, remember the radius is half of the diameter. So the radius is 1 foot. So that's what we're plugging in here. And look, this is multiple choice, so we could get away with this. But if we really, really, really wanted to be thorough here, we're plugging in technically r is 1 foot. And the height over here, h, is equal to 5 feet. So if we plug in the units too, just notice what we have is we have feet squared. So we have feet times feet and then times another foot. That's why the units at the end are working out to feet to the third power or cubic feet. So that's just one thing to point out about the analysis of the units. So now ultimately what we're finding is we have pi times 1 times 1 times 5, which is 5 times pi cubic feet. So we could just type this into a calculator. But if I had to be a betting man here, I would say that this is going to be choice G here, because pi is roughly 3.14, which is a little bit more than 3. So I know that 5 times pi would be somewhere between 5 times 3 and 5 times 4. Because once again, pi 3.14 is between 3 and 4. And 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times pi I'll leave intact. 5 times 4 is 20. So the value of 5 pi has to be between 15 and 20. So this is definitely our answer. But if you want to see the actual value here, just press 5 and then second, and this up arrow here will tack on a pi like this. And you can see here 15.7 is definitely checking out. So question 7, we have a list of numbers ordered from least to greatest, and we have one number missing. Which number could be the missing number? So we could check out here 18 over 5. If we were to reduce that, this is going to be equal to 3 3/5, which is the same thing as 3.6. But remember, they already told us that this is going in order from least to greatest. So what we want to find here is a number that's greater than 3.71, but the number is less than the square root of 17. Now the square root of 17 is only a little bit more than 4 because the square root of 16 is equal to 4. So if we look at this decimal here, this will give us something to aim for. So I would just rewrite this square root here as 4.123105626. We don't need all these decimal values here, but I'll just copy down whatever the calculator showed us. So you can see here 4.5 is not going to work, because 4.5 would not be a number that's less than the final number in the list. Remember, the list is going from least to greatest. So this number has to be the biggest number in the list. So that one's out. This is equal to 3.8 out of 100. And if you type this into a calculator, this is going to be 0.038. Okay, if it was 38%, then this would be fine because 38% is 38 over 100, which is 0.38. So this would work, but choice B does not work because it's only 3.8%. Now this I could already see is not the answer, because 3 squared is equal to 9 and 4 squared is equal to 16. So this number here, 3.9 squared, is going to be a pretty big number, okay? It's going to be, well, big compared to this list, because the biggest number in the list is 4.123, but this number is between 9 and 16, so this is too much. So I know it's going to be choice C, but if I really wanted to be thorough here, I could type in 57 divided by 15, and after we press enter here, notice we get exactly 3.8. So this is equal to 3.8, and 3.8 is definitely between 3.71 and 4.123. Question 8, we have a rectangle and it's graphed on the coordinate grid, but I'm just going to go ahead and draw a rectangle over here. And we want to know which transformation will result in a rectangle that is not congruent to the original rectangle. Now just know congruent means exactly the same. I think of them as identical twins. So if I had two congruent rectangles, their side lengths are the same, the angles between the sides are exactly the same. But which of these transformations is going to result in something that is not identical to the original shape? And I'm just going to resize this here, and this is going to be a dilation by a scale factor of 3, because what this means is I take this rectangle, and if I dilate it by a scale factor of 3, that means I triple the length of all of the sides. And you could see here that if I do that, the new triangle is not the same as the first triangle that we had here. So this would be the transformation that produces something not congruent to the original. So question 9, we have a total of 463,100 books in a library. What is the value of the exponent when this number is written in scientific notation? Okay, when you're writing a number in scientific notation, so I take a number like this. What I'm imagining in my head, or I could actually do this on paper, is I take the decimal, and notice our decimal is going to be at the end of the number. I'm just going to write a 0.0 here. And the transformation that I'm imagining here, so I've got my number and I got my decimal here. I have to count how many decimal places I have to move to go between the first and second number here. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we have to move 5 spaces here. So we're moving the decimal 5 spaces. And then what we do is we take this number. So this number here, 463,100, is equal to, I write 4.63100 like this, and we're going to multiply by 10 to the power of the number of spaces that we moved. Now, if you're unsure of whether or not to make this positive or negative, just know 4.63100 is a relatively small number compared to 463,100. So that's why I have to multiply by 10 to a positive power here, because that's going to build the number back up. But be careful here. Make sure you actually answer the question. The question is not asking us to write our number from standard form to scientific notation. They want to know what is the value of the exponent. And the exponent here that we're left with is 5. So our solution is just going to be 5. So for question 10, I borrowed 2 formulas from the reference sheet that will apply here. And we have Monica opening a savings account with a deposit of $3,000. And Monica will not make any additional deposits or withdrawals after she opens the account. And here's the 2 accounts. Account X pays 2.1% simple annual interest, while account Y pays 2.4% interest, and it's compounded annually. And we want to know which statements about these accounts at the end of 5 years is true. So what we're going to do is use both formulas. We have the simple interest formula, and I'll write that in jumbo font here. We have I equals PRT like this. And what this means here, this is calculating just the interest. So we have to be careful with this. So for this one, this is going to correspond to account X. So I'll just put the X over here like this. That the interest is equal to the principal amount, which is $3,000. So I'm just going to write the 3,000 here like this. R is the rate, but you have to be careful. The rate you have to express as a decimal. So 2.1% is the same thing as 2.1 out of 100. And if you simplify this as a decimal, this is going to be 0.021 like this. So we're going to be plugging in 0.021, and lowercase t is the time of the investment. And since this is going on for 5 years, t is going to be equal to 5 for both accounts. So now we just calculate this interest. So we're doing 3,000, and we're going to multiply by 0.021, and then we're going to multiply that by 5. And here is the interest. So the interest is $315, which means that the final amount of money at the end of 5 years for account X would actually be $33.15, because we're basically taking the $315 profit and adding it to 3,000. If we just add these two numbers like this, this tells us for account X that Monica is going to have $33.15 at the end of 5 years. But now for account Y, what we're going to do is we're going to use the compound interest formula. And what's nice about this formula is that it adds the interest on for you. So we have the amount is equal to the principal times 1 plus the interest rate to the power t like this. So what we have to do is calculate our new interest rate. R in the second case is going to be 2.4%, which is 2.4 out of 100, which is 0.024. So we're going to tell the calculator to calculate P, which is 3,000, and we're multiplying by 1 plus R is 0.024, and we're going to the power t here, and t is equal to 5 because this is going to go on for 5 years. So we have 3,000, and if we have a calculator like this, we can just throw a parenthesis and type everything we see as is, and we have 0.024, close the parenthesis, and we're going to the power 5 like this. So once we press enter here, notice what we have. This is the amount, which is definitely greater than account X. Right away we could see that. And if we want to see what's the difference, because we're going to have to calculate this eventually, we could just subtract 33.15 to see how much more money we make with account Y, and it's going to be $62.70 better for us. I'm just going to paste this here because there's no way I'm going to remember all these numbers, but the amount for Y was $33.77.70. And then when we took the difference between these accounts here, when we subtracted these numbers, the difference, I'll just abbreviate like this, was $62.70. So now we scan the answer choices, and remember, account Y is definitely better. So which account earns more? All of them say more. Account Y earns more, so that chops out these two answer choices. And account Y would earn $62.70 more than account X, so choice G is our answer. So question 11, we have a graph of a linear function, and we want to know what is the y-intercept of this function. So what I would do here is find the slope between these 2 points. So this is x1, y1, and we'll call this point x2, y2. And the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So our slope here, if we subtract, we're going to have 8 minus -7 divided by x2 minus x1. And this is going to work out, if we subtract 8 minus -7 becomes 8 plus 7, which is 15 over, and this is going to work out to 9. So the slope, if we divide the top and bottom by 3, is going to be 5 over 3 like this. So that's our slope. But what I want to think about here is the y-intercept. One thing that all y-intercepts have in common is that the x-coordinate is 0, and the y-coordinate for now I'm just going to call b. Because when you have the equation y equals mx plus b, we usually use the letter b for y-intercept. But remember, when you're on a line, the slope of a line does not change. So what that means is that the slope between these 2 points also has to be 5/3. So that's what we could do here, is we could find the slope between these 2 points and set it equal to 5/3. So what we're going to have is we're going to have 8 minus b, so I'm doing the difference of the y values, divided by the difference of the x values. So we have 4 minus 0, but that has to equal the slope of the line, which is 5/3. So now we simplify this a little bit, and this is going to work out to 8 minus b over 4 is equal to 5 over 3. And then from here, there's a few ways we could do this, but most people I think would prefer to cross multiply. So we're going to have 8 minus b times 3, and I'm going to write that over here. That's going to give us 3 times 8 minus b equals, and we have 5 times 4 is 20. And now what we could do is we could distribute this here. We're going to distribute the 3, and we're going to have 24 minus 3b is equal to 20. So then from here, what I would do is subtract 24 on both sides. So we're subtracting 24 on both sides, and we've got minus 3b is equal to minus 4. And now just divide both sides by -3. And this is going to tell us here that b equals a negative divided by a negative is positive. So we just say the y-intercept is 4/3. So definitely choice D. Question 12, we have a circle. The center is at -4, 7, and we're going to translate this circle p units to the right and v units down. We want to know which rule describes the center of the new circle after this translation. So one thing to be really mindful of here is that we're moving this to the right and we're going down here. So that's going to affect what we do with p and v. So we're starting with the center of -4, 7, and under this transformation, we're taking the x value -4 and we're moving it p units to the right, which means we're going to be adding p like this. And then we're taking the y value 7, and since we're going down and not up, we're going down, we're actually going to be subtracting v like this, because once again, the direction determines if we're going plus or minus. If we were going to be going p units to the left, then we would have -4 minus p. But we're going to the right, so we're going to be adding it. So now we just scan the answer choices here, and this matches choice G. So question 13, Rhonda's job is to drive a car for a company. Each month she is paid the same salary. However, she's paid extra money for the number of miles she drives the car each month. And what we have here is in July, Rhonda drove 640 miles and was paid this much money. And then in August, she drove this many miles and was paid this much. And then here's the actual question. Which function can be used to find y, the total amount she is paid? So y is the dollar amount, and then x is the number of miles. And these are all linear choices here. These are linear functions. So what we should be doing here is writing the equation of a line that passes through these 2 points. So remember, I labeled the x and y with the amounts here because when we write this out, like let's say 640 miles and this much money, my x value is the number of miles. So I'm going to start with 640 comma, and we have 3502 like this. So this is my first point. This is like my x1, y1. And then my next point, my x2, y2, would be given from the August amounts, which is 820 miles. And that pays Rhonda 3601. So what I would do here is find the slope between these 2 points. And notice that all of these answer choices, the lines all have different slopes. Remember this equation y equals mx plus b. The coefficient of x is the slope. And once we find the slope between these 2 points, that will tell us what our m value is, and we'll be able to find our answer right away. So m equals, we have 3601 minus 3502, and we're dividing by 820 minus 640. So this I would just type in the calculator. If you have a TI 80 something, you can just press alpha y equals enter, and that'll pull up a blank fraction. You write 3601 minus 3502, and then you're dividing by 820 minus 640. So we type this in, we press enter, and here's our slope. But if we have to, we go over to mode here, and we're going to change our answers from auto to decimal. This will happen if you borrow a calculator and it's been reset. It's going to sometimes come up in fraction form, but we do this, we press enter, and our decimal value is going to be 0.55. So this works out to 0.55. So that is the slope of our line. And notice the only answer choice that has that slope is choice C. So question 14, we have a table showing the cost per year of attending different types of colleges. So here's the table, and we have a student wants to go to college in 5 years, and the student already saved $1,200, and they plan to save another $50 per month over the next 60 months. And based on this information about the student's plan, which statement about the possible choices for a college is true? We basically want to know, what could they actually afford here? So what I would do first is they already have $1,200 saved. And what they plan on doing is saving $50 per month, and I'll just abbreviate here, for the next 60 months. So I'm going to multiply by 60 months. Notice that months on top and bottom cancel. And now you're just doing $50 times 60, which is going to work out to $3,000. Okay, so this is working out to $3,000. And what we're going to do from here is add this, because they already have $1,200 and they're going to save another $3,000. So if we add this up, this is going to be $4,200. That's their budget to work with. So what could they afford? Well, the first thing that jumps out at me is they could afford the cheapest thing here. They could afford 2 years in state, $4,000 per year. So now we go through the answer choices. The student would be able to afford the cost for 1 year at a private 4-year college. Well, looking at this here, what we have is the cost per year in dollars is $38,000. So a private 4-year college, $38,000 per year, they cannot afford that with their $4,200. The student would be able to afford out-of-state cost for half a year at a 4-year public college. So if we look at this, half of a year, if it costs $28,000 for the full year, then the half a year price, I'll write this over here in a different color, would be half of $28,000, which is $14,000. But even so, they can't afford that with their $4,200. So this one is out. And then next we have the student would be able to afford in-state costs for half a year at a 4-year college or 4-year public college. And we look, that's this second row. And if we look at the second row, if we have the full year is $11,000, cut that in half, and that's going to be $5,500. And once again, they don't have enough money. So this is out. So this is definitely our answer. But look here, the student would be able to afford in-state costs for 1 year at a 2-year college. And notice that's $4,000 a year. We have $4,200 to work with. So this definitely works. This one, though, you could probably just common sense it, because if they're saying which one is true, then they would have to only be able to afford the cheapest option here. So you can't have 2 true answers. You'd only have 1 true answer. So it has to be the one that's the cheapest, which is last. So question 15, we have fulgurites are pieces of glass in the shape of a cylinder produced when lightning strikes sand. Wow, learn something new every day. I didn't know that before this. So we have a student found a fulgurite with a height of 21 inches and a diameter of 6 inches. Which equation can be used to find V, the volume of the fulgurite, in cubic inches? Well, remember, the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared times h. And we have to think about what we know so far. We know that the height is 21 inches. And we know that the diameter, so we got to be careful again, the diameter is 6 inches. So if we have to plug into this formula, please don't plug in 6. This is like the trap answer choice here, the bear trap here. We want to look out for this. Okay, we're going to be finding the radius first, and the radius is half of the diameter, which is 3 inches. So now we're ready to plug in. The volume is pi times, and they didn't write units here, but 3 squared times the height is 21. So now we scan the answer choices here, and this is looking like choice B. So question 16, we have a line on this coordinate grid and is used to determine the number of inches of water added to a swimming pool after a different number of hours. Which statement best describes the slope of the graphed line? Now, one thing that all the answers have in common here is the way they're interpreted. Notice that it's the water is being added at a rate. They're all starting the same way, and we have inch or inches per hour, which is basically the same meaning here. So really all they're asking us to do is find the slope of this line. So I would start off here with the point 0, 0, and then next I would look for a nice point that falls exactly on one of the corners, which looks like it's happening here at the point 5, 12. And now I would find the slope between these 2 points. So this we could call our x1, y1, and this we could call our x2, y2. So we're doing the difference of the y values, y2, which is 12, minus y1 is 0, divided by x2 is 5, minus x1 is 0. And now we have m equals 12 over 5, and 5 goes into 12 2 times with the remainder of 2, and we have 2/5, and 2 over 5 is the same thing as 0.4. So 2.4, choice H is our solution. Question 17, we have a rectangle on this coordinate grid. Here are the points and their locations, and we want to know which measurement is closest to the distance between point B and point D. Now there is a nice distance formula to find the distance between 2 points, but that's not in the reference sheet and that's hard to memorize. So we're going to go a different approach here. And to find this distance between point B and point D, so I'm doing my best to draw this line here, we want to find the distance or the length of this line segment. What I would do is count the space across and down and then use a Pythagorean theorem here because this is forming a right triangle. So if we count across, we're going across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the reason why they gave us points here, like notice this is the point 5, 3, and point D is negative 1, 3. To go from negative 1 over to 5, we have to go forward 6. Like you could see 5 minus negative 1 is 6. So that's another way to make sure that we found the correct horizontal distance. And then if we do the same thing here, we're going from 5, 3 down to point B is at 5, negative 9. We could just see here what's the difference of those y values. We could do 3 minus negative 9 is 12. Or we could actually count here. We could just count up to 12 and see that this distance over here is 12. So then what we want to do is we want to find this distance, and I'm just going to put a lowercase c here so we could actually use Pythagorean theorem. And we're going to have 6 squared plus 12 squared. This is going to be equal to c squared. So now we have 36 plus 144 is equal to c squared. And then when we work this out, we have c squared equals the sum of these two numbers is going to work out to 180. And now we just take the square root of this. But if we're mindful here and we know our perfect squares, just know that 13 squared is 169. 14 squared is going to work out to 196. So our value here, notice, is square root of 180 is between 169 and 196. Like I'm pointing out here, the square root of 169 is 13. The square root of 196 is 14. So our answer has to be between 13 and 14. So choice B has to be our solution. Question 18, which situation describes a non-proportional relationship? Well, just know a proportional relationship, or we could say a direct proportion, is in the form y equals kx, where k is constant. And this means as x increases, y increases. And if we look at all the answer choices here, notice y equals 2 pi x. So our constant here, our k value, would be 2 pi. So this would be a direct proportion. So f is out. Here, k is equal to 3. So this is out. And then I'm going to go look at choice J here. K is equal to a half. So this is a direct proportion, so this one is out. So now here, we have to look at the total surface area of a cylinder with a radius of 1 unit and a height of x units can be represented by this. This is not a direct proportion because notice that extra plus 2 pi piece at the end is what ruins it and takes it out of the shape here. So H is our solution. Question 19, we have a pentagon, and this pentagon is rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin to form this new pentagon here. Which statement is true? Well, just think about it. If you take a pentagon, or even yourself, and you spin 90 degrees, the area of this new pentagon is not equal to the area of the previous pentagon. Well, spinning something doesn't change its area. If you rotate something, so let's see here, like if I just try to draw this at a slightly different angle like this, not exactly drawn to scale, but I just turn this thing going in this direction 90 degrees, the area is still going to be the same. That doesn't change the size or shape of something. It only changes the direction. And notice here we have the pentagon, the new one, is not congruent to the old one. Well, once again, if you spin something, congruent means it's the same size and shape, but spinning it is not going to change the size and shape. So this one is out. Remember from before, only a dilation will change the size of a figure. It's not going to change the shape of a figure when you dilate something, but it will change the size. And then we have here the perimeter of the new pentagon is greater than the perimeter of the old pentagon. But once again, when we spin this, the distance all around is not going to change because the size and shape remains intact. So this is out. So now let's see, choice D has to be our answer, but why is this good? The angle measures of the new pentagon are congruent, which means they're exactly the same as the corresponding angle measures of the old pentagon. Yes, because when you rotate something, you are going to preserve angles and distance. So this last answer choice is good. Question 20, we've got a scatter plot showing the relationship between the number of nights spent in a hotel and the total cost for the hotel. Which conclusion can be supported or is best supported by the scatter plot? So what you could do here is draw a line of best fit. I always like to do that for these scatter plot questions. And what we have is as the number of nights spent in the hotel increases, the total cost of the hotel increases. That makes a lot of sense right away. As people spend more nights in the hotel, their bill is going to be higher. So notice that the line is going up. Choice F is looking good, but let's see why the other answer choices are no good. So if we look at the other ones here, as the number of nights spent in a hotel increases, the total cost decreases. That, if you just think about it, does not make any sense at all. The longer you stay somewhere, the more money you have to pay. That would just not make sense. The longer you stay, they're going to all of a sudden drop your bill. Definitely not this choice. And then we have as the number of nights spent in a hotel increases, the total cost stays the same. Well, that would be if we had a graph that was just kind of going sideways like this. But once again, if you use common sense, a hotel is not going to just stop billing you the longer you stay, the more money you have to pay. And there is no relationship between the number of nights spent in a hotel and the total cost. It's not true. There is a relationship because notice there is a line of best fit here. These points are getting pretty close to this line. So our first answer choice is looking good. Question 21, we have set Q and set Z are subsets of the real number system. Q is the rational numbers, Z is the integers. We want to know which Venn diagram best represents this relationship between the sets. And one thing to know here is that the integers are, we have, I'll put 0 in the middle here, but then it's going 1, 2, 3, and all the whole numbers going this way. And then we have -1, -2, -3, and so on, going all the way left. So it's basically all the whole numbers, 0, and then the opposites of all of these numbers here. So that's the whole set of integers, while a rational number is a bigger set. A rational number just has to be a number that could be expressed in the form of a fraction, where P and Q are integers. Okay, but the extra condition here, to be precise, we have Q can't be 0, because then we would be dividing by 0, and when you divide by 0, the universe implodes. So with this definition, this tells us that every single integer is a rational number, because I could express it as a fraction. I could just write all of these numbers as being divided by 1. So every one of our integers counts as a rational number. So when I'm drawing this out in my head, I'm saying, okay, the real numbers are here. So here's the real numbers. And then the big set would be the rational numbers, and then the integers, Z, would be on the inside. So we scan the answer choices here, and our picture matches up with choice C. Question 22, we got a teacher bought a set of books that cost $17.95 per set, and then the teacher also paid a one-time shipping fee of $22. And we want to know which table shows the relationship between the total cost of the books and the number of set of the books that the teacher bought. So what we're looking at here, this is going to be a linear relationship. We have y equals mx plus b, but just know in word problems, m represents the rate and b represents the fixed amount. So what I would do for a question like this is I would just write out an equation based on what they gave us. So they told us that the slope here, or the rate here, the m value is 1795. So I'm going to write 17.95x plus the shipping fee represents the fixed amount. So this is our b value is going to be 22. And then the rest is calculator work. So we'll go over to the y equals here, and we're just going to type in the equation. We have 1795 or 17.95. We tack on the x, and then we're writing our plus 22. And now we're going to press second graph here. And notice what we could do is we look at the answer choices and notice that they start at 16, then they go 20, 24, 28. So I would scroll all the way down to around that range there, that we're going from 16 to 28. Now notice we run out of real estate. So what you could do is you could press second window. We could change the independent variable from auto to ask. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to manually input values if you want to get a custom table that looks just like the answer key here. So 16, 20, 24, 28. So we're just going to type those in. We have 16, 20, then we have 24, and then 28. And then these are the values to look for. So now we can just look at the table that we generated in the calculator and we scan the answer choices, and this is going to match up with choice J. So question 23, we have two customers spending the same amount of money at a restaurant. The first customer bought 8 hot wings. We'll call the price of the hot wings X and left a $4 tip. The second customer bought 10 hot wings, so that's another X involved here, and left a $2.80 tip. Both customers paid the same amount per hot wing, and we want to know how much those one hot wing costs at this restaurant in dollars and cents. So for this, we have to show all the work. So what we do is set up two expressions to set equal to each other. So we look at the customer's bill. The first customer's bill is going to be 8 times X plus 4, because remember, X we're saying is the price of one hot wing. So 8 hot wings would cost 8X plus the $4 tip, and this is going to be equal to, we have 10X, that's the price of 10 hot wings plus the $2.80 tip. So with this here, what we're going to do is just solve for X. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 8X on both sides to get the X's all on one side of the equation like this. The 8X minus 8X is going to cancel. And then what we have here in the next line, we're going to have 4 equals, and I'll leave a little space. We have 4 equals 2X plus 280. And now what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 280 on both sides. And we could use a calculator for this, but why not just practice doing some long subtraction here? So these terms cancel, and then 0 minus 0 is 0. And then we're going to borrow from this place, make it a 3, and put a 1 here, and we have 10 minus 8 is 2, and then 3 minus 2 is 1. So now we have 1.20 equals, and we're left with 2X. So now to solve for X, just divide both sides by 2, and this tells us here the value of X is equal to 0.60. So how much does one hot wing cost at this restaurant? If we had to write this into our answer document here, we would just write in 0.60. This is our solution. Question 24, we have a nice scatter plot here showing the relationship between the number of games a baseball team won and the number of hours the team practiced. Okay, so what we have is based on the scatter plot, which is the best prediction of the number of games a baseball team won if the team practiced 3 hours each week. So for these type of questions here, what I would do is draw in the line of best fit. So I'm going to draw a line, just a rough sketch here, and say this is our line of best fit. We want to draw it so that it's going through as many points as possible. It's like kind of central to all of these points. Like don't draw it somewhere crazy like all the way out here where it misses everything. You want to draw it kind of in the neighborhood of these points and going in the same direction. So then from here, we go to 3 hours and we say, okay, so what would be something in the neighborhood here? Well, notice this is counting by 2. So this would be 12, this would be 14, and then 16, and we're somewhere in the middle there. So 13 games, choice H is looking good. The moral of the story here, though, the more you practice, the better you'll do. So for something like this math test, just make sure you get your practice in. Okay, which measurements could represent the side lengths in feet of a right triangle? So with a right triangle, what we want to be mindful of is that the sides have to satisfy the equation for Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So now just scanning the answer choices here, we could just go brute force through all of these answer choices, or if you recognize some of the Pythagorean triples, some common ones here are 3, 4, 5. These make up the 3 sides of a right triangle. Then there's other ones like 5, 12, 13. There's other ones like 8, 15, 17. But what you could also do is you could generate a similar triangle based on one of these. And let's say I use a scale factor of 2. A scale factor of 2 here is going to generate a similar triangle where each side is doubled. So then if I do 5 times 2, I'm going to get 10. 12 times 2, I'm going to get 24. And then 13 times 2, I'm going to get 26. So right away, I could see that this is choice A. But if I wanted to be really safe here, what I would do is I would check out that 10 squared plus 24 squared is equal to 26 squared. So let's take a second to write this in on the main screen. We have 10 squared, and then we're adding 24 squared. And then we could press enter here and just double check, is this equal to 26 squared? And those two definitely match. So I'm confident in our answer. So question 26, we have a table of values for the coordinates of pentagon ABCDE, and we're told that this pentagon is dilated by a scale factor of 7/3 with the origin as the center of dilation to create a new pentagon. And what we have here is if XY, so here we go, we have XY is a point on pentagon ABCDE, which ordered pair represents the location of the corresponding point on the new pentagon here. So what we have to know here is that if we have some point XY on this pentagon and we dilate by a scale factor of 7/3, so we're doing a dilation by a scale factor of 7/3, what we're going to do here is we're going to multiply each term here in the point by 7/3. So our new point is going to be 7/3 x, comma, 7/3 y, like this. What was a little bit annoying about this question, so this is going to be choice J, but what was a little bit annoying about this question is they gave you a little bit of extra information. Like, it doesn't matter what the 5 points of A, B, C, D, E are. What does matter though is that you are dilating by a scale factor of 7/3, so you simply just have to multiply. So question 27, we have a cylinder here, and what we want to know is the measurement that is closest to the lateral surface area in square centimeters of the cylinder. So for this, if you have the formula memorized, great. Otherwise, just go to the reference page here and note that the surface area of a cylinder, the lateral surface area, is going to be 2 pi r times h. So what we want here is just the lateral surface area. We don't want the entire surface area because that would include the circle on top and bottom. We just want the lateral surface area. So what we have here so far is we were told that the diameter of this cylinder is 5.8 centimeters. So that would tell us if we want to find the radius here, just divide this by 2, and that's going to work out to 2.9 centimeters after you do 5.8 divided by 2. Then the height of this cylinder is just going to be 7.6 centimeters. So if we want just the lateral surface area, we're going to ask the calculator, what is 2 times pi times, we have 2.9 centimeters, and then we're multiplying by the height, which is 7.6 centimeters, and we'll have our solution. So we have 2 times pi is second in this up arrow here, and then we have times, we could put parentheses 2.9, and then we could put another parenthesis here to write our 7.6, and now the calculator is going to multiply all of these together. And small detail to note, but it doesn't matter because this is multiple choice. When we do centimeter times centimeter, that's going to be square centimeters, which matches all the units we have here. But now scanning the answer choices, this will match choice C. So question 28, we have 2 lines graphed on the coordinate grid to represent a system of equations. And what we have here is we want to know what is the x-coordinate. So what is the x-coordinate of the ordered pair that best represents a solution to both equations? So just know that a solution to both equations is the point of intersection. So we look here, the point of intersection looks like it's at x equals 0, y equals 0, like this. So what is the x-coordinate? X equals 0, choice G. Question 29, we have quadrilateral PQRS. This is being dilated with the origin as the center of dilation to create a new quadrilateral. And we have the coordinates of each vertex are integers. Which statement is true? Well, the one thing that jumps out at me the most here is that when we dilate something, the new shape is similar to the original. Okay, so the new shape is similar to the original. Now, one thing that will happen is that the new shape could be bigger or smaller. So one other commentary that I have here is that it's the same shape, which means similar. Same shape, but usually a different size. Now, I say usually a different size because like 99.9% of the time, the scale factor will be either a number bigger than 1 or between 0 and 1. Sometimes it could be less than 0. But if the dilation was a scale factor of 0, you would just have the same shape, but that would be boring. It wouldn't really be an exciting dilation. So similar to the original, same shape, different size. So now let's read this. Each side length of the quadrilateral is 1/2 the corresponding side length of quadrilateral P prime, Q prime, R prime, S prime. So if we look here, they're saying that the side length of quadrilateral PQRS is half the corresponding side length? But no, because notice the big one, the big quadrilateral is PQRS. P prime, Q prime, R prime, S prime is the small one. So this choice doesn't make sense. Quadrilateral P prime, Q prime, I'm just going to say the new quadrilateral, that's hard to say, is congruent to the original. No, congruent means exactly the same, but notice that it's a different size quadrilateral. So they can't be congruent. This part here would not be true. So B is eliminated. Each angle measure of the old quadrilateral is half the corresponding angle measure of the new one. But no, when we dilate something, the angles between the corresponding sides stay the same. It's the same shape, it's just a different size. So the angle measure doesn't change. So this is out. So this is automatically our answer, but let's read this. That this is saying the new quadrilateral is similar to the original quadrilateral. Yes, a dilation will preserve angle measure, so the new shape is going to be similar. So question 30, we have the list in weight of 6 puppies at birth. So here's their weights. And we want to know what is the mean absolute deviation of these numbers. So what I imagine for something like this is, let's say I number this, we have 1, and I'm going to leave plenty of space, 2, 3 like this. And I just plot these 6 numbers. So 3 is over here. And then we have 1.6 is roughly here. We have 2.8 is over here. Then we have 2.5. We have 1.7 is a little bit past this one. And then we have 2.8 repeats again. So we have a second point over here. And let's say the average is somewhere in this neighborhood over here. So what we want to find when we're talking about the mean absolute deviation of these numbers is we're finding the distance of all of these numbers from that red point. So I'm essentially calculating how far away is this point from this point, how far away is this point and this point between these 2 points here. And then I'm going to just give myself more space from the red to these points, and then from the red to this final point out here. And whatever these 6 distances are, because notice this one here repeats, it's these 2 are at the same location, but whatever these 6 distances are, we're going to find the average of those 6 numbers. So I drew that out just to get the concept down, but if we want to do this with the calculator, we press stat, we go over to edit, and we're just going to input these values. But now what we want to do after we input these values, we're going to go over to the second list here, and I'm actually going to scroll up and right onto L2. And what I want to do is write a formula here, and I want to find the absolute value. And the reason why we're doing absolute value is because if the distance between the points we're talking about has to be positive, so the absolute value is going to ensure that all of those 6 values we're looking for come out positive here. And we're going to find the absolute value of the numbers from list 1. So I could just press second 1 here to type in list 1 minus, and remember, we're finding the distance between each of these 6 points and the average of these 6 numbers here. So if I want to find the average of those 6 numbers, I could press second stat, go over to math, and then mean represents average here. And I'm going to find the average of these 6 numbers. So I'm finding the average of list 1. So I'm just going to type list 1 here like this with second 1. And now I close this and press enter. And now these values here represent how far away each of these numbers are from the average. Now, if you actually find the average by hand, it's 2.4. And you can see that 3 and 2.4 are 0.6 away from each other. 1.6 and 2.4 are 0.8 away from each other. So that's what these numbers represent. But now what we want to do is we want to find the average of those numbers from list 2. So we could just press second stat, go over to math here, and we could calculate the average of list 2 like this. And this is going to tell us that the mean absolute deviation here is 0.5. So this is going to work out to choice F. So question 30, we have a company is drilling a water well, and the graph models the linear relationship between the depth of the well and the time spent drilling. We want to know which function best represents the relationship between y and x. So for this one here, it really helps to know this formula, y equals mx plus b. And now we just have to go searching for the slope. So this is the slope, the m value, and the y-intercept is our b value. Well, the y-intercept is easy to find. This is hitting the y-axis at 0, 0. So we have a b value equal to 0. But now to find the slope, we have to know the formula for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Or if you have good eyesight, you could just count the rise over the run. But now I'm going to pick a nice point like 530 because these are 2 integer values. So this will be easy to calculate the slope between, other than using something like a decimal value. Let's say we're over here at the point 2.5 comma 15. So I would rather use this point. So now we have, I'm going to call this x1, y1, and I'm going to call this point over here x2, y2. So now the slope, we just use the formula. We're going to do 30 minus 0 divided by 5 minus 0. And now this is going to work out to 30 divided by 5, which is 6. So now just write the equation of the line. We have m times x, so we have 6 times x, and then plus b. B is equal to 0, but I don't have to actually write plus 0 because that doesn't change anything. And this matches choice A. Question 32, which graph does not represent y as a function of x? So for this one, we're going to use the vertical line test, which means that if I draw a vertical line through the graph at any location, if it only strikes at one location, that makes the graph something that could be represented as a function. We could have y represented as a function of x. So notice this first answer choice, all the vertical lines I draw are only going to hit the graph at one location. So this is not our answer. We want something that cannot be represented as a function. Now, choice G also can be represented as a function because all of these vertical lines only hit the graph once. So this one's out. Choice H could also be represented as a function because these vertical lines are only touching once, but now here is our answer choice since this is all that's left. And notice there's the culprit here. At x equals -1, notice our vertical line is touching the graph at these two locations like this. So this one here is not a function. Question 33, we have Mount Fuji in Japan could be modeled as a cone with a diameter of 25 miles and a height of 2.35 miles. Which measurement is closest to the volume of Mount Fuji in cubic miles? So the volume of a cone is 1/3 pi r squared times h. And here what we know is that the diameter of the cone is 25 miles. And I'll leave the units out because all the answers have the units in them. So the radius would be half of that. That would be 12.5 miles. And the height is 2.35. So now that we have everything defined here, the rest is just plugging into the formula and then the calculator. So we have 1/3 pi. Make sure, be careful not to plug in the diameter. You should be plugging in the radius, which is 12.5. And that's being squared and then multiplied by the height, which is 2.35. And then we'll just tack on the units at the end. The units here are going to be cubic miles since we're talking about volume. So now just type this in. We've got 1/3. And now we're going to tack on the pi. So we have second. We press this up arrow here. And now we're going to go to 12.5. And this is being squared and then multiplied by 2.35. So we type all this in, and here's our solution. Question 34, we have a refrigerator that comes packaged in a box shaped like a rectangular prism. And we have the base of the box measures 4 by 5 feet, and the total surface area is 148 square feet. And we want to know here, what is the height of the box? So this could really help if you draw this out. So I just imagine a box here. So here's our rectangular prism box. And what we have is we have a length, we have a width, and we have a height. So this, we could label some of it. They said that the base of the box, which means the bottom, measures 4 by 5 feet. So let's just say here that the length is 4 and that the width is 5. And now the height is what we're looking for. This is the piece we want to know. But what we were told is that the surface area is 148 square feet. So what you want to think about, I'm just going to make this into more of a 3D looking shape here. I'm just going to draw this down like this, and I'm going to draw these components in like this. So now we can see the 3 dimensions. So the surface area of a rectangular prism, we'll notice that the front and the back are exactly the same. And the front and the back are made by multiplying the length and the height. And since there's 2 of them that match, that's 2 times length height. Plus, if you look at the base here, notice the base is length times width, and that's the bottom, but the top is the same. So we have length times width, but it shows up top and bottom. So we're going to put a 2 in front. And then we have the left side and the right side, which is determined by the width and the height. And since the left and the right match, we're going to tack on a 2. So this is the formula we want to use here. So now we just plug in the surface area is 148 square feet. And this is equal to 2 times the length times height. Well, the length is 4. The height is what we're looking for. So we'll just tack on an h. And then we have plus 2 times the length times width. And the length is 4. The width is 5. And then we have plus 2 times the width times height. And the width is 5. And the height is what we're looking for. So that's the variable that we're trying to solve. So we have 148 is equal to, this is going to be 8h after we multiply, plus, and this is going to work out to 8 times 5, which is 40, plus 2 times 5 times h is 10h. And now what I would do here is combine like terms. So we'll just do this in the next line. So we're going to have 148, and might as well just write this up here. We have 148 equals, and then we're going to have 18h plus 40. So now just subtract 40 on both sides. And now this is going to bring us to this step here. We're going to have 108 is equal to 18h. And just so I have space, I'm going to write the rest over here. We have 18h equals 108. And now just divide both sides by 18. And we're going to have h is equal to, this divides evenly and works out to 6. Now, if we actually had to write units here, what is the height of the box in feet? The height of the box is 6 feet, but this is going to be our answer to question 34. Question 35, we have two student groups went to an amusement park on the same day. Group 1 got 9 tickets and got a $120 discount. Group 2 got 3 tickets and a $30 discount. And we have both groups spent the same total amount of money on tickets. And we want to know, what is the cost of each ticket? All right, well, this scenario is just kind of ridiculous because I don't get why group 2 wouldn't just buy 9 tickets and then maybe sell the other 6, but whatever. This is not asking us what you would do. It's just find the cost of one ticket. So let's just say the tickets cost X dollars. So that would give us 9X. The discount we're actually going to subtract. Okay, so we have 9X minus 120 is equal to 3X. $30 discount, not 30%. So $30 discount, we're subtracting 30 just like this. And now just solve for X, so minus 3X on both sides. And we're going to have 3X minus 3X canceling. 6X minus 120 equals, and we're left with negative 30 on the right side. And now we want to get X by itself, so add 120 to both sides. And now what we've got here, these cancel. We're going to have 6X equals 120 minus 30 is 90. And now if you divide both sides by 6, this is going to give you X, which is our solution. 6 goes into 90 once with the remainder of 3, and 6 goes into 35 times, so 15. Choice C is our solution. So question 36, which set of ordered pairs represents Y as a function of X? So when they're giving you ordered pairs, what you want is you want X does not repeat. Okay, so if X does not repeat, then you're going to have a set of ordered pairs that can represent a function. So here, let's look. 4 is unique, 2 is unique, but then look, we have repeating ones here with different Y values, so this is out. Now here we have negative 7, that's showing up once so far. Negative 15 shows up twice with different Y values, so this is out. And if we look, we have 11.1, 5.1. So these, all the X values are different, so it's looking good, but check it out. Square root 1, square root 1 with different Y values, this is it. Now the reason why this works to give us the answer looking for the non-repeating X values is because let's say I take one of the wrong answers. I take this choice here and I start graphing this. Well, we go over to the point here at 1, and now let's say the square root of 3, not drawn to scale, is here, and the square root of 10 is up here. If I plot the point 1 square root 3 and 1 square root 10, notice that if I draw a vertical line, it's going to hit both of these points, so this would fail the vertical line test. So that's why this repeating X value test works, is that it mimics what we're doing for the vertical line test. So our solution here is definitely H. So question 37, we have the coordinates of the vertices of triangle XYZ are here. The triangle is dilated by a scale factor of 3/2 with the origin as the center to create a new triangle. And we have XY represents the location of any point on the original triangle. Which ordered pair represents the location of the corresponding point on the new triangle here? Well, this is basically the same question that we got earlier. And if we're dilating here by a scale factor of 3/2, then we're just taking any XY and we're going to multiply it by 3/2. So we just look for this answer choice here, and this is going to be choice A. What throws students off with questions like this is sometimes when they give you like all this extra information, you think there's like some crazy amount of math that you have to do. But that's a skill that you need for this level of math, higher levels of math, and even your sciences, that you have to be able to throw away the extra information. Choice A is definitely our answer. Question 38, Larry puts this much money into a savings account, and this happened 8 years ago, and the account earns 4% simple annual interest. He makes no additional deposits or withdrawals, and we basically just want to find here, what is the balance in dollars and cents at the end of 8 years? So for this, we could use the reference sheet to get the formula for simple interest, which is here. So I would just copy this down. We have I equals PRT like this. Now P represents the principal or the initial investment here. So Larry put $1,287 into this account. Lowercase r is the interest rate expressed as a decimal. So if we have 4%, we write that as 4/100, and you could type that into a calculator or just convert this to a decimal. That's 0.04. So that's going over here. And then lowercase t represents how much time this amount of money is sitting in the bank, and this is going on for 8 years. So now just plug in capital I equals, we have 1287, and then we're multiplying by 0.04 and then multiplying by 8. So we work this out here. We have 1287 and we're going to multiply by 0.04 and then multiply that by 8. And what we have here is 411.84. But remember, Larry invested $1,287. So then we want to see what is the balance in his account. We have to add that to the initial amount that Larry invested. And this is going to give us our solution. So the interest itself was $411.84. But now if we want to calculate the balance here is going to be the $1,287. And then we're going to add the interest that was earned, which was $411.84, and we already typed this in the calculator. This is going to work out to $16.98 like this. So here's our solution. So question 39, we have a student traveled a distance of 68 miles in 136 minutes. Which graph has a slope that best represents this rate? Well, notice here that the y value is in miles and the x values are in minutes. So what we could do here is we could look at, we have 68 miles. So that's our rise here over our run is 136 minutes. So what we could do here is calculate the unit rate. And notice here that 68 over 136 simplifies to 1/2. So what this means is that the student runs 1 mile in every 2 minutes like this. So we're looking for a graph that for every mile that we get, 2 minutes is going to go by. So that is looking like, if we go over here at choice C, because you could see here that if the student goes 1 mile every 2 minutes, you could see that in 2 minutes, the student went 1 mile. And then 2 minutes later, at 4 minutes, the student goes a second mile. 2 minutes later, the student goes a third mile, and so on like this. So choice C is looking good. Question 40, we have the cost for electricity varies directly with the amount of kilowatt hours of electricity used. And we're told that the cost for using this many kilowatt hours of electricity was this much money. So when I hear this phrase varies directly, the first thing I do is I write down the formula y equals kx, where k is a constant. It represents the constant of proportionality. So this is for a direct variation. We use this formula. If it was inverse variation, then you use x times y equals k, but this is direct variation, so we're going to use y equals kx. So now what we have here is we could assign variables and say, let's say I call this piece x and I call this piece y. So now I'm designating x as the number of kilowatt hours and y is the cost. And now I'm going to use this initial information to solve for k, and then that's going to help us answer the rest of the question, which is what is the cost for using 908 kilowatt hours of electricity? So let's plug in this information first here. So we're going to have y equals, or 129.48 equals k times x, and x is 1079. So now I would just divide both sides by 1079, and that's going to tell us what the value of k is. So if we just do 129.48 and we divide by 1079, our value of k is going to be 0.12. So k is equal to 0.12. And now what we do with this information, we plug it back into this formula here, and we get an actual formula for y equals. We have y equals, and we'll make this a little bit neater. So we have y equals 0.12 times x. And now what we want to know is what was the cost for using this many kilowatt hours of electricity. But remember, kilowatt hours represented our x. The cost was the y. So we're going to be plugging in for x here. We're going to have y equals 0.12 times x is 908. And the rest is calculated work. So we can just multiply our previous answer here by 908, and this will give us our solution. So the cost is going to be 108.96, and this matches up with choice J. Question 41, we have a map, and it's showing different routes and distances for a new state highway between Camden and US Highway 99. And here's the proposed routes. And we want to know which list shows these distances from least to greatest. So here are the distances, and what I would do here is I would just type these all into the calculator. So if I were at this test here, I would just actually write these in. This is 42.1875. 40 is just 40. And then the square root 2111. So we have 45.95 over here. And then 586 over 13 is going to give us 45.08. And then 10 square root of 17 is 41.23. So we want from least to greatest. Well, notice 40 is definitely the smallest number. So we need our answer to start with 40. So that means B and D are the only ones that are going to be left. And then after 40, we could label these here. Like this is the first number in our list. Then the next smallest number would be 10 square root of 17. And notice that 10 square root of 17 shows up here, but not here. So B is automatically our answer. But then let's say we keep ordering this. Notice next after this would be 675 over 16 is our third option, and that's definitely showing up third here. And then we have 586 over 13. This is definitely fourth because this is less than 45.95. And then this is definitely our fifth number here. So choice B is our answer. Question 42, the final question. Which situation can be represented by this equation over here? So let's just read through these. We have first up, Crystal reads 12 pages per hour. John Doe reads 18 pages per hour. How many hours X would it take for Crystal and John Doe to read the same number of pages? This choice does not make any use of the 19 here. And if you think about it, Crystal reads 12 pages per hour. John Doe reads at a faster rate. So then Crystal, if they just kept reading forever, would never catch up to John Doe. So F is out. Now we have Crystal paid a deposit of $19 plus 18 per hour to rent a dining room. So right away, that's looking like 18x plus 19, which does not match what we have here. So I'm already wanting to cross this out, but sure, we could read the rest. John Doe paid $12 per hour to rent a dining room. So that would be 12x. And how many hours would it take for them to pay the same amount of money? Well, this wouldn't work here. This would not match what we have. If you set those equal even, you would have a negative number, and you can't have negative hours going on. That doesn't make sense. So G is out. Crystal installs 12 tiles per hour. So that's 12x. So for this next one, let's change colors here. We have 12x. John Doe installs 19 tiles per hour. That's 19x, and already started with 18 tiles installed. So 12x equals 9. Yeah, this one is not working. So automatically J, but let's see why J is good. So Crystal could make $18 per hour by tutoring. So that's 18x. John Doe could make $12 per hour by tutoring. So that's 12 times x he's earning. And John Doe already has $19. So that's the plus 19. How many hours for them to have the same amount of money? So we would be setting 18x equal to 12x plus 19. And this matches the starting equation here, so this solution is definitely good.